Grand Ole Opry legend Stringbean Akeman and his wife were in their home back in 1973. But this year, their killer, John Brown, became a free man.
I committed one of the most atrocious crimes ever to be committed.
I don't have any right to ask for forgiveness.
I want him to serve every second of those 198 years. I don't want him to ever breathe another breath.
48 years. That's how long a witness statement sat buried in Tennessee police files. 3 sentences that prove everything we believed about the Stringbean murder was dead wrong. I saw a third vehicle leaving the property around 11 p.m., dark-colored pickup, not the Browns' car. Someone else was there that night, someone who left hours before Stringbean came home, someone never identified, never questioned, never arrested. 2 men went to prison for this brutal double murder, but new evidence exposed in 2021 reveals a terrifying truth that changes everything. They weren't working alone. Someone pointed them at Stringbean, someone who knew exactly where the hidden money was stashed, someone who's been walking free for 5 decades while the truth stayed buried. And what researchers have finally uncovered will change everything you thought you knew about this case. The man behind the grin. David Stringbean. Akeman stood barely over 5 feet tall. Oversized pants that hung comically low. Suspenders stretched to absurd lengths. A gap-toothed grin that made America laugh every Saturday night. On television, he looked like a cartoon character brought to life, a living piece of Appalachian folklore who seemed too innocent for the modern world. But here's the deal. Behind that folksy exterior lived a man consumed by deep fear and paranoia, a man whose worldview had been permanently shaped by trauma. Stringbean grew up during the Great Depression in rural Kentucky. Dirt poor doesn't begin to describe it. He watched banks collapse overnight and take entire communities with them, saw neighbors lose farms their families had worked for generations, witnessed firsthand how fast everything could disappear. That trauma never left him. It burrowed deep and defined every decision he made about money for the rest of his life. By the early 1970s, Stringbean had become a genuine household name across America. His banjo picking was legendary among musicians. His cornball, humor, and perfect comedic timing made him a beloved fixture on Hee Haw, the massively popular country variety show watched by over 20 million viewers every single week. He'd performed at the Grand Ole Opry for decades, sharing stages with absolute legends like Bill Monroe, Roy Acuff, and Minnie Pearl. In the world of country music, Stringbean was royalty, the real authentic deal. And get this, despite pulling serious money from television appearances and touring, Stringbean lived like he was still dirt poor back in Depression-era Kentucky. While other country stars bought sprawling mansions in Nashville's nicest neighborhoods, Stringbean kept chickens in his backyard. While they drove brand new Cadillacs, he chopped his own firewood and hunted squirrels for dinner. His home was a modest 2-room cabin tucked away in the hills of Ridgetop, Tennessee. No security system, no alarm, no protection of any kind. But the real story, the one that would eventually cost him everything, was about the money. Stringbean didn't trust banks. Period. He'd watched them fail catastrophically during the Depression and was convinced they'd fail again. So he carried thousands in cash stuffed inside his overalls. He hid money throughout his cabin in places only he knew, behind specific bricks in the chimney, inside certain wall cavities, under particular floorboards, in coffee cans buried across his property. Here's the catch that proved fatal. Everyone seemed to know about it. Musicians whispered about Stringbean's hidden fortune backstage at the Opry. Locals gossiped at diners over morning coffee. The rumors spread through Nashville like wildfire, growing more detailed with each telling. Stringbean keeps a fortune hidden in that cabin, tens of thousands of dollars. Easy pickings for anyone bold enough to take it. Those rumors painted a giant target directly on his back, and someone was paying very close attention. Country music historian Dr. Robert Whitfield spent 3 years meticulously researching Stringbean's life for a documentary project. What he uncovered disturbed him deeply and kept him awake many nights. The rumors weren't just casual gossip, Whitfield explained in a recorded interview. They were incredibly specific, disturbingly specific. People claimed to know exactly where the money was hidden. Which bricks, which walls. That level of detail doesn't come from barroom talk. Someone close to Stringbean was deliberately spreading that information. The question that haunted Whitfield's research was simple. Who was doing it? And why? But the discovery that would blow this entire case wide open was still buried deep in the evidence locker. Waiting. The night everything changed. November 10th, 1973, a Saturday night like countless others before it. Stringbean performed at the Grand Ole Opry that evening, joking with fellow performers backstage between sets. Playing his banjo with that signature flair audiences had loved for decades. Those who saw him said he was in excellent spirits, laughing and cutting up with friends. His wife Estelle was there too, smiling and supportive as always, the steady presence who'd been by his side through years of struggle and success. After the show wrapped up, they said their goodbyes to friends, climbed into their modest car, and made the familiar drive home to their cabin in Ridgetop, a route they'd driven hundreds of times before. Same route, same schedule, same predictable pattern, week after week. Someone was counting on that predictability. John Brown and his cousin Marvin Brown were petty criminals with lengthy records for theft, small time, desperate, going nowhere fast. They'd heard the same rumors everyone else had about Stringbean's hidden cash, and decided it sounded like easy money, a fortune just sitting in some cabin in the woods. They knew his Saturday schedule because everyone did. So, they broke into the cabin through a window while Stringbean was performing miles away. They ransacked the place looking for the hidden fortune they had heard so much about. And then they made a fateful decision that sealed their fate and ended two innocent lives. They decided to wait for Stringbean and Estelle to come home. When the Akemans pulled into their driveway sometime after midnight, they walked directly into a deadly ambush. Stringbean entered the cabin first. He was shot almost immediately, collapsing near the doorway. Estelle heard the gunfire from outside and ran toward the cabin. Whether she was trying to help her husband or escape, we'll never know. She was gunned down outside the home, found the next morning, lying face down in the dirt near the driveway, her purse still clutched in her hand. 2 lives, erased in seconds, for almost nothing. The devastating news shattered Nashville and sent shockwaves through the country music community. Grandpa Jones, one of Stringbean's closest friends, discovered the bodies the next morning when the couple didn't show for a hunting trip. That horrific memory haunted Jones for the rest of his life. But here's where things start to get truly terrifying. When investigators searched the cabin in the aftermath, they found it completely torn apart. Every drawer emptied, furniture overturned and ripped open. The killers had clearly been searching with desperate intensity for hours. Yet, despite all that searching, they left with almost nothing. The money was still there, hidden exactly where Stringbean had left it. The Browns got away with less than $200 in cash. That's it. Meanwhile, thousands of dollars remained hidden throughout the cabin, behind bricks in the chimney, inside the walls, under floorboards they had walked across repeatedly. Basically, they came for a fortune and left with pocket change. A senseless double murder with nothing to show for it. So, here's the deal. If the Browns broke in specifically because they had heard detailed rumors about hidden cash, why couldn't they find it? They had hours, completely alone, hours to search every inch. Either they were spectacularly incompetent, or they were never told exactly where to look. Someone gave them just enough information to get started, but deliberately withheld enough to ensure they wouldn't succeed. And that's when researchers started noticing something terrifying buried in the original case files. Justice served, or was it? The arrests came remarkably fast. Within days of the murders, police had both John and Marvin Brown in custody. They had criminal records. They'd been seen spending suspicious cash in the aftermath. Multiple witnesses placed them near the crime scene. John cracked under questioning, though his story kept changing with every retelling. The subsequent trial gripped Nashville and drew national attention. Prosecutors painted a chilling picture of cold brutality. The Browns had come prepared for violence. They'd brought loaded weapons. They'd waited in darkness for hours. They clearly had no intention of leaving witnesses alive. The jury deliberated briefly before returning guilty verdicts. John Brown was sentenced to 198 years. His cousin Marvin, who turned state's witness, received a lesser sentence. Case closed, justice served. The system worked. That's putting it lightly, because beneath the surface, something wasn't right. If you want to see justice for Stringbean, hit that subscribe button and help us keep digging into cold cases like this one. For decades after the convictions, troubling questions festered beneath the surface. Questions that haunted investigators, journalists, and anyone who looked closely at the evidence. How did two small-time criminals know Stringbean's exact schedule with such precision? How did they learn about his hidden money in such specific detail? And most puzzling, why couldn't they find what they came for despite having hours alone? The Browns didn't really talk. Not about the things that mattered. They never named the source who first told them. About the money. Never revealed whether anyone else was involved. They took those crucial secrets with them, or so everyone believed for nearly half a century. Then, in 2019, forensic analyst Kevin Driscoll was carefully reviewing digitized crime scene photographs for a true crime podcast when he noticed something that had been completely overlooked for 46 years. There were 3 distinct sets of muddy footprints inside that cabin, Driscoll explained, but the official police report only documented 2. When I enhanced the photographs using modern software, the 3rd set was unmistakable. Different tread pattern, different size. Someone else was physically present. When Driscoll first presented his findings to other researchers, the room went completely silent. 3 distinct sets of footprints inside the crime scene, but only 2 killers were ever convicted. Someone else was there that night. Someone who was never caught. The buried evidence. It's not that simple, though. Driscoll wasn't the only one finding major discrepancies in the official record. In 2021, cold case researcher Marissa Caldwell was sorting through digitized Tennessee Bureau of Investigation files when she found something that made her blood run cold. A witness statement dated November 12, 1973, 2 days after the murders. The witness was a neighbor named Harold Jennings, who lived near the Akeman property. He told police in clear terms that he had seen a dark-colored pickup truck leaving the property around 11 p.m. on the night of the murders, hours before the Browns' vehicle was spotted anywhere in the area. That statement never made it to trial. It had been buried in the files for 48 years. When I discovered it, Caldwell said, her voice carrying disbelief, I couldn't understand why it was suppressed. This was critical evidence of a third party being involved. It should have been presented to the jury. Someone made a deliberate decision to bury this statement. Caldwell spent months trying to track down Jennings or surviving family. Jennings died in 1991, but she located his daughter in Kentucky. The daughter confirmed her father always believed someone else was involved. He talked about it until the day he died, she told Caldwell. He was absolutely convinced, but he said police didn't want to hear it. They already had their suspects. 3 distinct footprints at the crime scene, a 3rd vehicle leaving the property, suppressed witness testimony. The evidence pointing toward a larger conspiracy was piling up fast, and it all pointed in one terrifying direction. Here's the wild theory serious researchers have been pursuing for years. The deeper you dig, the more disturbing it becomes. The Browns were small-time criminals, no connections whatsoever to Stringbean's inner circle. Yet they knew specific details about his money, his schedule, his lack of security. Someone fed them that critical information. Someone had to. But who would do that? And why? Dr. Whitfield spent years carefully examining this question. He identified a small handful of people in Stringbean's orbit who possessed the knowledge necessary to orchestrate the robbery. You had to know when Stringbean would be away, Whitfield explained. You had to know about the cash, and you had to know where he hid it. That's an extremely small circle, maybe 5 or 6 people total. And get this, Whitfield discovered that one person in that circle left Nashville suddenly in early 1974, just weeks after the trial ended. They moved across the country, Whitfield said carefully, changed careers completely, cut all ties with the music industry, severed relationships they'd maintained for years. That kind of clean break is extremely unusual. Whitfield wouldn't name them publicly, legal concerns, but he confirmed one crucial detail. The person is still alive today. Someone who may know exactly what happened, walking free for 50 years. The real motive. The troubling evidence kept surfacing the more researchers dug. In 1996, construction workers renovating Stringbean's former cabin made a stunning discovery. Hidden behind walls and beneath floorboards, they found over $20,000 in cash. The money had been concealed so cleverly that even 1973 investigators missed it completely. The bills were damaged by then, decades old, barely usable as currency. But their discovery proved something crucial. Here's the catch that makes this so significant. Those hiding spots weren't random, they were incredibly specific, behind certain particular bricks that looked identical to others. Inside, specific wall cavities requiring exact knowledge to locate. You'd need precise information to find them. The Browns searched that cabin frantically for hours, found almost nothing. The renovation workers found $20,000 in days. What explains that difference? Workers were guided by family accounts of Stringbean's habits. The Browns were working completely blind. General information? No. Precise locations. Which leads to a disturbing conclusion. Whoever fed the Browns, the original rumor deliberately withheld the most important details, pointed two desperate criminals at a target, but kept back information needed to succeed. Why would someone do that? What purpose could it serve? Caldwell has developed a theory that chills everyone who hears it. What if the third party never intended for the robbery to succeed, she proposed. What if the goal all along was to get Stringbean killed? The money was just bait, motivation to get the Browns committed. Point them at the cabin, let them wait in the dark, and violent confrontation when Stringbean came home was inevitable. A cold-blooded murder disguised as a robbery gone wrong. The perfect crime. If Caldwell's theory is correct, the Browns weren't masterminds. They were pawns. Tools manipulated by someone more calculating. Someone with a hidden agenda. Someone who wanted Stringbean dead for reasons having nothing to do with money. And that real mastermind was never identified, never caught. Grandpa Jones never spoke publicly about one specific detail from that morning. But in a 1988 radio interview, he finally broke his silence. The back door was unlocked, Jones said quietly, his voice heavy with grief. Stringbean never left that door unlocked, never. Not once in all the years I knew him. But that morning, it was wide open. The interviewer asked what he thought it meant. Jones paused a very long time before answering. Someone left through that door, someone who wasn't there when I arrived. He died in 1998, never elaborated, but his words added another layer to a mystery that refuses to die. 3 footprints, third vehicle, unlocked door, suppressed statement, someone who fled Nashville after the trial. The evidence points to a chilling possibility. Someone orchestrated this murder from the shadows. Someone who knew Stringbean personally. Someone still alive today. The truth they don't want you to know. In 2014, after serving more than 40 years behind bars, John Brown was granted parole. The decision sparked immediate outrage. Friends of Stringbean condemned the release publicly. Opry veterans demanded the board reverse its decision. Petitions circulated. Media coverage was extensive. But what made the hearing truly disturbing wasn't just the decision. It was Brown's behavior. No remorse, none whatsoever. He maintained a vague, evasive story that avoided direct responsibility, dodged questions about specifics, gave no comfort to families devastated by his actions. And most significantly, he never revealed whether anyone else was involved. If there really was a third party, Caldwell observed, Brown had every reason to stay quiet. He's out now, finally free. Naming names would put him at serious risk. Whoever planned this has spent 50 years covering their tracks. Brown knows talking could be dangerous. The Browns never talked, not about what truly mattered, never named their source, never explained how they obtained such specific information. Someone else knew the full truth. Someone stayed silent for 5 decades. The terrifying truth about the Stringbean mystery isn't just that a beloved entertainer and his wife were murdered. It's that the complete story has never been told. 2 men went to prison. 1 died behind bars. 1 was released. But the evidence screams they weren't working alone. Someone pointed them at Stringbean. Someone gave them information. Someone may have wanted more than money, and that someone has never faced justice. For 50 years, they've walked free, lived without consequences, maybe watched documentaries about the case they orchestrated. Every passing year makes them safer. Evidence degrades. Witnesses die. Memories fade. But the truth doesn't disappear. It waits. Stringbean didn't want to be remembered for how he died. He'd want to be remembered for the laughter he brought millions. the music that carried Appalachian, a soul into American homes, the humble life he built with the woman he loved. He just wanted to play his banjo, tend his garden, and live simply. But the world wouldn't let him. Rumors spread too far, reached the wrong ears, and on a cold November night in 1973, two men, quite possibly directed by someone who knew far more than they should, shattered everything. The case is officially closed. Convicted killers served their time or died. But for researchers like Caldwell, Driscoll, and Whitfield, the investigation continues. New evidence keeps surfacing, questions keep multiplying. The feeling that justice was never served grows stronger every year. Somewhere out there, someone knows exactly what happened. Someone who orchestrated a double murder from the shadows. Someone who's never paid the price. Someone who's lived free while Stringbean and Estelle lie buried in Tennessee soil. And that's the real mystery, the one that refuses to die. Do you think there was a third person involved? Someone who's never faced justice? Drop your theory in the comments below. If you want more cold cases reopened, smash that like button and subscribe. We're uncovering secrets every week.